And a very good evening and welcome back to Hockey on 216, brought to you by Hyundai. My name is Bridget Key. I'm stepping in for Kelvin Watt, who's away at the moment. And I apologize in advance. It's been a long weekend of commentating, so I do have a bit of a squeaky voice. But I'm joined again by my host, Moodles, passionately known in the hockey fraternity. And along with me are some guests that we've got joining us for the first segment of the show. One being Rob Pullen from Kingsmead. It's lovely to have you here, Rob. You're very familiar to hockey. You used to do this hockey corner many years ago as well. So Rob's head of sport at Kingsmead College. So great to have you joining us.
Thank you very much. Lovely to be here.
And brilliant. And next we've got Manny Sekhale, who is a commentator that we all know in the hockey fraternity as well as an umpire. I think I've got a few yellow cards from you in my time. And someone who's been involved in schoolboy hockey for many, many years. And it's great to have you joining us, Manny.
Yeah, really excited to be here and looking forward to it.
Brilliant. So what we're going to be looking at this time is just a bit of a wrap-up of what happened last week. It was a phenomenal weekend for hockey across the board. I think we had something like 2,000 fixtures. We had close to 200 fixtures at St Mary's Waverley Hockey Festival. I think close to 80 fixtures at the Courage Festival. We had 18 cracking games at independent schools. Yep. And then we were also down Cape. We covered the Cape Co-Ed Festival. So, I mean, hockey across the globe, phenomenal hockey everywhere we went. Rob, being at Kingsmead, you at St Mary's, you at independent schools. We're going to focus heavily on the St Mary's side just to look at a bit of a wrap. But within that, a lot of it will also be looking at what we saw at the other festivals.
Yes.
So first, from your side, Manny, I mean, St Mary's was chilly. Mm-hmm. Hence, we all got colds and, struggled under the rain. But the festival made up of 32 teams, probably the toughest competition in schoolgirl hockey festival, sport so far. It's been going for 23 years, I think. Yeah. You've won it twice at St Andrews. You've been involved in schoolboy hockey, but you know it so well. It's a phenomenal festival.
It certainly is the mark for girls. I think that it's great that the Courage Festivals come on board because I think it gives the girls something to strive for to get into those 32 teams at St Mary's. And we just, I'm looking forward to chatting to Rob about how they battled it out at the Courage Festival to gain entry into St Mary's for next year. I mean, the vibe there on Wednesday was incredible.
Yep.
So good to see, we're always talking about resources in South African schools hockey, and so good to see how well all the teams are coached. We watched a little bit of their practice sessions on Wednesday afternoon. Incredible to see. It was bound to be a classic festival.
Absolutely, and I think, Manny, you made mention of it earlier. The competition was so tough this year. It was really anyone's game. We all were the favourite, and we spoke to them last episode, the Renich team. Tough competition for them, but there were other teams that just came through the ranks, and we watched them just grow from strength to strength throughout the festival. Tough format. Interesting play. What was your take on it all?
Yeah, absolutely. It's come along. We've done this for a few years now, and going into this tournament, or this festival rather, normally that there's 3 or 4 sides at any given time that can kind of win this competition. This year, I felt like there were between 12 to 16 teams at any stage on your day who could have disappointed you. I mean, we have a look at St. John's DSG, who managed to get a 1-0 victory over Unisi a couple of years ago. Would have never been something that you can imagine. So the competition is just at the highest level at the moment.
Yeah, and Rob, you made mention of it. I mean, as I said, you were at St Andrews before you've moved across to Kingsmead College, and you've won it twice with St Andrews. Kingsmead had a tough festival this time round, but just generally, it's a festival that everyone looks forward to, grows to, starts their pre-season for, builds up for, and so forth. I mean, it as a very, very competitive festival.
100%. I think, also to iterate again, the standard has got so much stronger. There's so many more teams that are competitive.
Yeah.
And I think, those who won it 10, 15 years ago can be lucky because today, as I said, even on the third day, I couldn't even tip who the top 4 or 6 were going to be. And in the past, you would know that. So for me, the standard has definitely risen, hence why I brought in the Courage Festival. And I felt that it was so tough that so many good teams could not get in. And with 2 out and 2 in every year and rotating, very few teams got that opportunity. So we just hope that the Courage Festival can't really grow being on one turf, but it is something that's to be looked at going forward.
And Moodles, you made mention of just the competitive nature of it and the physicality. I mean, you saw it on Wednesday when we were shooting there.
Yeah, I mean, about 15 years ago, I coached the Kingswood girls first team in Makanda, and the physicality and the level of tactical knowledge from the girls is just astronomical. It's improved astronomically over time.
I agree.
I think it's got to do with the coaches coming in. But watching those games, a lot of teams playing on the counter attack. I think that to what Manny said earlier, if you weren't good in defence, you were going to be tested, because I watched Renish play, who we all thought would be the favourites. I think they were the favourites right up until the semi-final. But they would have 70% possession in a game, but then leak one short corner on the other end, concede, and then it's a completely different game. So to Rob's point, any team could have emerged in those semi-finals, going into day 3. It was an incredible spectacle for girls hockey. And when you add the teams at St Mary's and you add the teams from the Courage, you're looking at 40 schools there. To think that there are 40 schools playing hockey at that level is just incredible. I mean, I had a thought when Rob was talking. I mean, how much of what is happening in schools for girls at the moment is as a result of the St Mary's Festival. Schools needing to go and invest in their hockey programs, get in good coaches. The St Mary's Festival really has put girls hockey on the map.
Definitely, I totally agree with that. And I think that's one of the main reasons why we started it, because it now gives an opportunity for teams to get a second bite. And that if you come there well prepared and organised, the dream can come true.
Yeah, like it did for St Mary's Kloof, who we saw clinch that win with the cracking goal from Jamie De Silva. I mean, it was a phenomenal shot she got off, playing up against Blumhoff. Prior to that, in the semi-finals, I know you were on the mic with those two top games.
Yeah, really good finish to the day, it must be said. As Moodles was talking about a little bit earlier, defensively, those 4 sides were so good.
Yeah.
Blumhoff, I think, conceded 3 goals throughout all 12 games. Renish conceded 1. St. Mary's conceded 5. Inisi conceded 5. So it was going to take something really special. And on the final day, Jamie De Silva, who was absolutely phenomenal. She really is a player with BMT. She stepped up to the occasion in the quarterfinal against Paarlgem, in the semi-final and in the final. And it was going to take something special for them to win that. And really happy for them. They really stepped up in that final game.
And so tactful in their play as well. I found that what I love about hockey at the moment, that coaches are offering so much tactic and so much insight, like analytical insight, defensive insight, striking insight. I mean, the strikers that we're seeing grow in the game is brilliant. And
when we spoke about it in the build-up to the festival, we said that perhaps that's an area where we need to improve on as a country, is goal scoring. What better platform than to have a tournament where goals matter, and there's that extra emphasis on scoring goals and making your chances count. Something interesting that I want to ask Rob and Manny about from the festival. So much preparation goes into preparing tactically, technically, gameplay scenarios. I wonder how much time is spent on shootouts and 1v1s,
And both finals went to shootouts.
Both finals, and I believe at the Courage Cup as well, it went down to a shootout. Penalty flicks in the game that changed the flow of games. How much time are we spending training that in the build-up to tournaments? And we know pre-season programs are jam-packed already. Very difficult to find time to cover all these things. But when you consider that a whole tournament is based on that one moment.
Yeah. Look, I think it's really tricky, and it's something we made mention of a little bit earlier. Unfortunately, during the season, if you're not playing in a tournament or you're not playing in a knockout style, format, you don't often go to 8 seconds, but it is a really good 1v1 skill to have with the goalkeeper, because you find yourself in those positions, during open play. So it might be something they look at, but how often do they go? But of course, in the ladies' game, they play a lot of tournaments. So it is a big part. It is a big part of the game as well.
Yeah, it's definitely. I think the format is in such a way that 25 minutes, both at Courage Festival and St Mary's Festival, it does allow for coaches to really work on that element even further. Whether you can take it into the season is important, something you have to look back on and reflect on afterwards. But I think it's a fascinating style of hockey, this go-forward mentality.
Yes.
And interesting enough, we were one of the teams that let us down was the shootout.
Okay.
But coming from St Andrews, I won a shootout in a final and won a game in normal play, and know that we had prepared for shootout in the one we won. So I do fully agree with you that preparation is really important. But again, the standard of goalkeeping is so high that no matter what skill you have to be exceptional. And I think we had a really good striker who beat the keeper, but keeper got a stick to it, little nick. That's all it takes.
Absolutely.
So I think, the standard for keeping is phenomenal in this country, and I think we're very blessed.
Yeah. I mean, again, we spoke a little bit last week about training ethic and replicating these pressure moments at training sessions, because I don't think anything will prepare a girl for taking a shootout in a sudden death scenario to win the St Mary's tournament or to win the Courage Cup. We have to find ways of creating those scenarios at training. We know kids love competition, so perhaps that's something that coaches will focus on going forward.
And I think the fact that both semi-finals went to shootouts, it is something that all teams will take away with. Likewise at Courage Festival, we're going to talk to it later, but same thing. You're going right down to the final being a shootout, and keepers stepping up. And that's also great to see in the whole schoolgirl space. You're not just putting anyone in the goals nowadays, you're putting very capable players, and you've got very capable strikers. And that's exciting. You've got the likes of Radomir Paul-Gim. She is a strong, dynamic player. She took on a one-on-one, probably the goal of the tournament. She was really good. You've got Leah Duplessis, you've got player of the tournament.
Yes.
Nicola Forbes, you've got player of the tournament at St Mary's. I don't know if they did a player of the tournament.
No, didn't.
So, opportunity for those teams going forward, individual skill. It's really super exciting hockey in the schoolgirl space at the moment.
Yeah, 100%. And if I look at the top 5 things I can take out of this tournament, going back a couple of years, I think one is definitely goalkeeping, as we've mentioned. All 32, 33 goalkeepers, whatever, they were just unbelievable. Gone are the days you just put someone in the goals and hope for the best. All the goalkeepers on the day were just brilliant. The competition and pace, I thought, was amazing. The intensity, as you mentioned. I think this tournament is so high stakes at the moment. It's so high pressure. You can't afford for the first 5 minutes to go, a goal down, whatever the case may be. Was really good. And the last thing that I can talk about, the aerial skills. Unbelievable. A couple of years ago, unimaginable. Now everyone can throw, everyone can catch, everyone can go forward off their aerial, and just the level has just picked up so much in this tournament.
And when we come back into segment 2 of the show, we're going to talk to the Courage Festival in particular and look at independent schools and probably talk to those aerial skills and the skill sets growing. We'll be back with you shortly. And welcome back to Hockey on 216, brought to you by Hyundai. We looked at a wrap of St Mary's Hockey Festival, but one area that was really interesting, the first year of it, was the Challenge Festival, Courage Festival, hosted by Kingsmead, and something so unique and so special that you've got this now filtered down from St Mary's Hockey Festival, 32 teams there, been so hard to get in traditionally, and now you have teams that have wanted to, with the opportunity now to play up to get into the festival next year. Likewise, new schools, everything. So, Rob, being at Kingsmead, you started this idea. Just talk us through exactly what it is and what it means to have these 16 teams with this opportunity.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's, as you say, when teams drop out of St Mary's, they hunt to get back in.
Yeah.
And you find the same 8 or 10 schools are rotating every couple of years. I looked at it about 2 years ago and spoke to Jill Quicks from St Mary's and just said, look, we need to think about something. Would they be open to a suggestion? And last year, I sat down with them and they said they were keen. It takes pressure off them because they just give me the next 18, 20 schools and we pick 16 from. So it's not my choice. It's basically from a selection of the shortlist and what's next in line. So we are promoting 2, and the bottom 2 will also drop out from us, which we will also start to recycle. And I think as time goes, we might even go to 4. But for next year, it's 2. And I think the nice part about it is teams knowing, coming prepared now, that if they do well, the dream's there for them.
And same format, hey, 25
exact
minutes.
Same format.
One way.
Correct. It's just obviously we only have the one field.
Yes.
But we do have a slightly different format in terms of they have a cross pool before they have a quarterfinal. And from that point of view, all we do is off the cross pool quarterfinal, you go straight into a semi where they don't. They have a cross pool. And it's quite interesting because it benefited my school this year, and then we just messed up in the quarters. So in saying that, it's really a nice different system they've done. And I think, as I said, the standard at the top is great. And the teams coming in are going to be easily fitting in. I can tell you at St. Mary's, both the two schools, Parafale and Redham Constantia, played exceptional good hockey. And they will fit in quite comfortably. And it's a pity. There was probably another 3 or 4 more schools who did really well who just missed out.
Yeah, absolutely. We watched that final. Was Paul Filet, Redham. And I mean, Redham just knocking on every door at the moment.
Absolutely.
They were at
the boys at independent schools were a team to be reckoned with. So something going on at Redham must be their headmaster, Alex Gitlin, who's a hockey man through and through. So good things coming out of Redham.
Yeah, I think Alex putting in hard work at Redham. But likewise as Chris Hibbert on the girls' side, you know, they played in that semi-final. They did really well in this semi-final, in the final. And they played Paul Filet. Vanry Fencer, also a hockey lover. She's been an umpire for many years. Yep. She's now heads up the hockey program down at Paul Filet. Boys section also doing so well at Paul Filet. So we're just seeing these co-ed schools kind of just stepping the platform up each time.
No, for sure. What I was interested in what Rob was saying. So you had 16 schools at Courage Festival.
That's correct.
I mean, that's incredible. I thought I heard 8 earlier. So that takes it to close to 50 schools that are. I mean, you know, and you're saying that you would consider going 4 teams in, 4 teams out later on. But I mean, is there that much demand?
There's huge demand. If I can tell you now that I had 2 schools in the last month prior to the event that pulled out for certain logistical reasons. I had probably 10 schools grabbing at it. There's a huge demand. I can tell you that right now. We could, if I had a second turf or a second option, we could grow ours to 32. It's just that as soon as you lose your focus and take another venue, it just loses its purpose. We've also taken on the netball side of it as well. Yes. You know, St. Andrews Netball Festival. Yeah. We've taken on 16 schools there to do the same for them. They currently have 4 relegations going out at the moment, at the bottom, which does recycle quite nicely.
And Manny, sorry, I know you were able to talk to a lot of the games that Pretoria girls who are going to find themselves going down to Courage Festival, as well will Kingsmead. But, you know, they played really good hockey at St. Mary's Hockey Festival. Yeah. I watched a lot of their games and I thought that they were actually very good. So it's not like the standard is differentiating much.
Yeah, not at all. And I think the really good thing is when a school is going through maybe a tough time, a tough 2 years or whatever, it gives them the opportunity just to take a step back a little bit, to play at the Kingsmead Courage Cup, and just allows them to really come out of their shell a little bit and be a little bit more dominant or a little bit more competitive. And of course allows for another 2 schools to really come to the top. So I think a fantastic initiative and grateful.
Yeah, I mean, having HS Middelburg play in the 3 and 4, they, you know, played Epworth in that one, lost 2-1. We're seeing Epworth now with Darren Gallagher. You know him particularly well. And the boys set up originally from Hilton. Now, instead of going to independent schools, he's at Courage Festival with all the girls. But I mean, he's done wonderful work with that Epworth side, as has HS Middelburg. Really good hockey by them. So that's exciting. You don't often hear of, you know, an HS Middelburg all of a sudden knocking on the door against these traditional hockey schools.
No, it is. I think it's great. And I think the coaching standards, good to see these national players giving back.
Yes.
But not saying that these other coaches are not as good. To me, the coaching styles have been brilliant. It's good to see every game was competitive. I don't think we had a 3 or 4-0 loss in the week tournament. They were all very close games, which is very exciting to see. And then again, with Redham, unfortunately, winning a shootout in semi and then losing it out in the final. But them and Parafale played exceptionally good hockey. Epworth were unlucky.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, close games also at independent schools. I mean, talking about competition being tough, that was tough competition. Yeah,
and again, you know, all the games were fairly close. I think what's quite nice about independent schools is that, you know, the independent schools often have a smaller player base to choose from. So we saw a lot of young players coming through at independent schools, which was good to see, exciting. But also, you know, a wealth of knowledge from a coaching perspective with the guys who brought the teams there. And so the games are all hotly contested. The teams are very good tactically. You could see a lot of video work being done. Excuse me. A lot of video work being done, and well prepared. You know, I think with the festival being a week later, I think it gave people a little bit more time to prepare. And we saw teams that had been doing well through the season really stake their claim. You know, some really good results. I thought Michaelas again came out tops. They've been tops this season.
We've spoken to them quite a bit on how they're slowly elevating their platform.
Absolutely. One all draw with them and Bishops. I thought the St. Benedict's team has also been good. They drew 3-3 with Bishops.
Very good.
Redham House had 2, they drew 1-1 with St. David's. Would have been a good game for Alex because he had been at St. David's previously. And then Redham House beating St. Benedict's 3-2, which I don't think we would have picked before that game, because St. Benedict's have done fairly well at Nomads as well. So, you know, a good result there for Redham. But for me, and maybe I'm a little bit biased, the pick of the results, you know, St. Albans beating Bishops 2-1.
Not a little bit biased at all. No.
It was good, you know, and I think what was great for me in that game, I spoke about, you know, the independent schools being able to give younger players an opportunity, is that the Bishops centre mid Callum Anderson, incredible player, played in the national under-17 team last year. So I think he was a 16-year-old last year. Standout player, you know, on the field, you could see. But then on the St. Albans side, St. Albans had a couple of injuries, and they have a youngster, Form 2 boy, so he's just turned 15 this week.
Incredible.
Going up against Callum in that game. And what a battle that was, you know, and St. Albans eventually just pipping them right in the last 2 minutes of the game. So, you know, some really good hockey at the independent schools. And I think, you know, if you're involved in the national setup, on the men's side or the ladies' side, you're looking at these festivals that happened over this weekend and the previous weekend, Nomads, Founders, and I mean, the future looks so bright. I find myself sitting watching these games thinking, how is there so much talent in our country, and what are we going to do to ensure that we're competitive at senior men's and ladies level? I mean, Rob, you've been involved there. You probably have some insight into that.
Yes, excitingly, what I like to do is watch the under-21 setup, because being convener of the under-18 girls, it's just good to see those names coming through, which gives you a bit of positivity that you are doing a pretty good job. But I think what's really exciting for me is when they go on to national level. But I really believe at under 18, our standard's very good.
Yes,
and I
absolutely.
think we're very blessed at the moment with hockey. And I just hope our national coaches know how to handle all 30, 40 of those players going forward. Because it's how we keep them in the country and how we keep them playing good hockey.
I know that Inky Zondi, the coach of the national ladies side, was with us at St. Mary's Hockey Festival, and he commentated a lot of games, and he also made mention of the standard across the board, and he popped into Courage Festival, and I know Sig's also popped into the Independent Schools Festival, and I have no doubt a lot of people will be watching the Cape Co-Ed Festival, because that too was hugely competitive.
Yes.
You got all the co-ed schools down in the Cape. I think there were 8 venues across the Cape. They had much better weather than Gauteng did.
Yes.
A much warmer festival to go to probably for all of us. But that there too, the standard was phenomenal. You know, in the co-ed space, you got the boys and the girls in that space equally pushing themselves really hard, and it's exciting to watch.
Yeah, and I think it's brilliant, all these festivals, because it just gives the players more game time, which is, that's the only way coaches will know. That's the only way you can really develop. You do all your prep going into the week, but the more you play, if you can just play, you know, you'll get exponentially better. So that's where our hockey is at the moment, and I think it's fantastic to see.
Yeah, Fairmont winning both the boys and the girls at that co-ed festival. I mean, massive for Fairmont. And I think they'll have
probably why they host it.
Yes, they'll have the bragging rights in the Cape for the next couple of weeks. So, yeah, I mean, as Manny said, amazing opportunities for our hockey players in the country. I mean, Rob, I suppose we have to get to a point where we're giving our national school teams more opportunity to play, and not just the under 18A side, but the player base is so big now. We probably have enough players to choose a number of different national teams, and even if we have an internal competition, I think there needs to be exposure.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, last year, under 17s got out to go and play in Malaysia, and I think that was exciting to expose that generation. We're now seeing that generation now coming through under 18. Hence why the standard to me is so strong. Because kids are fighting. Under 16s have come up. So I'm excited for where hockey is at the moment. I really am. I think there's huge opportunities. But as you say, it's the participation, competition for those national teams.
Yes.
What do they do? And I think, just 1 or 2 sort of friendly games against Namibia or someone like that, it's not really ideal.
Yeah.
We do need to get them into tournament exposure.
Yes.
And let's hope that can happen going forward.
Absolutely.
And I mean, I also think too, the point we've already spoken about it so much, but how the game in the goalkeeping space as well as the attacker space has grown so much and been coached so heavily. And it's something we're going to definitely be looking into more and more. And actually, next in the show, we're going to be speaking to Sia Noluchungu, who is, a national goalkeeper for many years. He now coaches goalkeeping, and he's going to speak to all sorts of different techniques. I mean, the goalkeeper for Paul Filet pretty much saved and won them the final at Courage Cup in the shootout. I think her name is Jade Thron. She had a phenomenal save, and that got her win for the whole team. And that's what you're looking for in these teams, pushing each other, elevating each other. So looking forward to chatting to Sia next. We'll be back with you shortly. And welcome back to Hockey on 216, brought to you by Hyundai. We have a really interesting segment now where we're going to be chatting about goalkeeping specific skills with Sia Noluchungu, who has played 47 matches for South Africa, 47 caps. I know Moodles has coached you personally, or you've worked with him before. Manny has umpired many a game, and I think you probably have played against each other somewhere along the lines. And it's just interesting how goalkeeping has really evolved here. Like over the years, it's become something that is so critical part of the game. It's a skill that is now coached specifically, whereas in the past, I remember when I was young, someone just threw me a pair of cricket pads and said, get in the goals. And I didn't listen to them, fortunately, but you did listen to them, and that's where you are today. And it's great having you on the show, chatting to us. I know we're going to talk to things quite specifically. All of us are going to engage on how goalkeepers have really evolved, the technique has evolved over time. And just on your side, you've been watching a lot of hockey now. Your take on goalkeeping in general in the schoolboy and schoolgirl space?
Yes, Bridge, thank you very much for having me tonight. Really awesome to be here. I think more than anything, it's been such a special journey starting off as a goalkeeper and to where we're at today. The game has evolved so much quicker, a lot more has changed, and it's just becoming more exciting. And so far from the tournaments that I've played during the year with the Nomads Festival and the St. Mary's Festival, watching all of those kids play in the goals there, I would have wished that I had a coach myself back in the day that would have actually joined me. So really, really awesome to be in the space of coaching right now. A lot of knowledge to impart with the development that's taking place at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we spoke to it already. We've spoken to the goalkeepers. We made mention of it non-stop in the past weekend. Moodles, you saw it at independent schools. Yes. The techniques coming into play, the defensive play has just escalated the whole game.
Absolutely. I mean, it's interesting that Sia makes the point about goalkeeping coaching. And I wonder when we're going to get, I know that a lot of schools contract in a goalkeeper coach, but I just don't know if there's enough contact time with goalkeepers when you consider how long training sessions are. And, I think a segment like this tonight is going to help coaches, particularly those in remote areas with no access to a goalkeeper coach with the technical know-how. But, what I'll be interested to hear from Sia again is what to look for initially in choosing
Absolutely.
A goalkeeper, because you talk about the old school way of doing it, but what are the sort of triggers for
what makes you good?
What makes you good?
Yeah.
I mean, in my limited knowledge of goalkeeping, I'd say like if a boy or girl wants to do it, that's the first step in the right direction. But apart from that, Sia, I hope you'll cover a little bit about what coaches can look out for in choosing a goalkeeper. And we saw in all these tournaments played this weekend that at the end of the day, that's the make or break. A good goalkeeper is...
A lot of the girls' games were ultimately won because of goalkeepers.
Yes.
Making critical saves, key saves in shootouts, key saves in match, key running lines and defensive PCs, big things like that.
Yeah, so we're going to go straight into the crux of it all. So with early stage development goalkeeping, it's very important to see who are the most agile ones out of your group of players? Because I know back in time they used to pick the biggest guy, the back or the slowest guy, but now the game has evolved so quickly that our keepers almost have to be part of that elite group that is very fit, agile, can get from one place to another, very explosive around the back, good eye for the ball, particularly guys that also and girls that play soccer or any ball sports that would get ball hand and eye coordination in synced into that. And I think the most important part about it is that if they're able to pick up that they're good at their feet, you can coach someone make better stick saves, glove saves, use other parts of the body.
I mean, that we were speaking about it earlier, the footwork involved in goalkeeping, you've got to be really agile on your feet and watching ball the whole time. Yeah,
most definitely. And another thing is that people forget that you're also putting on pads, and that's like an additional 5 to 7 kgs of equipment that's on, and equipment safety is such a big parallel to this. As we know that with short corner masks, they can't be taken off until the whole entire phase is finished. So same for the goalkeepers. So whenever they wear from top to bottom, make sure that kickers are in place, leg guards are in place, thigh guard, groin guard, chest and armor pads, helmet, and the gloves. I don't wear elbow guards when I normally play because I feel a little bit restricted, but that's part of the safety of the game.
And CS, I mean, interesting. Manny umpires a lot of games, and I know that it's become such a crucial thing. If a goalkeeper loses a mask or something, it's instant stop, start again. You know, you're always looking after the goalkeeper because you're in a very vulnerable place.
Yeah, 100%. You know, it's always got to be about safety. Everything we do, of course, in hockey now is to protect the players, and the goalkeeper is no different. Often we think, the goalkeeper's got all this padding, they can't get hurt. It's a really high-risk position, and it's important to make sure they're always protected.
Absolutely. Sorry, Moodles, you were saying.
No, I just wanted to ask Sia, how does the safety and player safety from a goalkeeping perspective come into the way they train? I mean, is this something that's been focused on, or is it just kind of that goalkeepers need, as Manny says, they're safe because they've got kit on?
No, there's actually a little bit of science to it, as you know, that most teams also have physios and strength and movement coaches that they do have with them. It's very important for them to get particular parts of their body strong enough so that they're able to hold the equipment, because if you're wearing oversized leg guards, for example, because you have to grow into them, I mean, equipment is very expensive these days, so that's another element that you have to almost look at. And once you've got a kit that molds onto you, you almost become a transformer yourself to make those saves.
I always think that now when you're a goalkeeper, all of a sudden emerging like a transformer. You're spot on. I mean, they look like transformers right there. Green transformer.
Precisely. And then the other part of it is that now you've got to become so mobile and agile across the goals, just to make sure that you also able to push off and make those acrobatic saves like we saw right here. So those become so fundamentally important by being able to move with the kits that is on you, and how you can also sort of take small bits away where you can't necessarily get hurt, to also take the weight off, because there's also a little bit of aerodynamic that also comes into play with this.
Yes.
And I think getting hit is something that you've got to almost accept is going to happen. I mean, you're in the goals to stop that, but at the same time, you've got to throw yourself forward at it. I've always found it interesting. I remember someone saying, run at the ball if you're a goalkeeper. Is that the right advice or the wrong advice?
I would say more than anything, and I say this to myself till this day, is that whatever you do before they take the shot, don't blink. Because if you blink, that's a moment of your brain almost like switching on and then switching off and then switching back on. So if you allow yourself that moment to make the save, and you also have to be very still before you make the save, funny enough, is that you have to be able to set and then make the save, so that once you make the clearance, you can set up in position again to now face a second phase save or reset your whole defensive line.
Yeah, that second phase, I think that's where we're seeing goalkeepers have evolved so much all of a sudden.
And that speaks to Sia's point of the agility.
Yes.
Because to be able to get back up, make that return save. The Dutch keepers were always really good at that, and I think we've adopted a lot of that into our coaching in South Africa, which has been really good. And just watching some of these videos, for me, the question in my mind, for Sia is, like we have developmental stages for outfield players, What should primary school coaches be looking at developing from a keeper perspective? And at what point would you say you start involving keepers into tactical awareness and things like that? Because I think the mental side of it is one thing we possibly haven't touched on. But what are those developmental stages for a goalkeeper?
Widows, I think the most important part when we look at the goalkeeper aspects we need to focus on, I focus on 4 things, and that's the mental, the physical, the tactical, and the technical. And I think all of them just sort of bridge on as they get older. From 13 years old, you've got to make the exercises fun and engaging so that they learn that this is also a fun position rather than just standing in the back of the goal. Then from a technical aspect, you start fixing how to make a save with your feet, with your leg guard, with your gloves, and potentially even with your chest and sometimes your own head.
So that's headshot.
Yeah. And then from a tactical perspective, you're almost like the second coach talking from the back, marshalling instructions, making sure you're putting your defenders in the right positions. And then more than anything, the mental aspect. When your team is down, you're the guy that's keeping the team in the game or taking them out of a position of disrepute in circumstances like that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense that those are the 4 aspects that you looked at. I mean, the other thing, from a selection point of view, or whichever way you're looking at a keeper, I would imagine like outfield players have traits of an individual. What are the different types of keepers? What are the different types of traits? I mean, you've got some interesting thought around that.
Yeah, Moodles, I think there's a multitude of things because it also goes to height with different keepers and different capabilities. So I have 4 aspects. It's the wall, the assertive communicator, then we've also got the shot stopper and the dead eye specialist. With the wall, it's the keeper that can make the save in the deep 9-yard spaces, making sure nice and agile, making that second and third phase save. Those would normally be your shorter goalkeepers because they can get really low on the ground. Then we've got the assertive communicators who dictate where the defenders need to go, almost like playing chess. I
think that would be me more than anything. Okay.
Placing them in the right positions. They do a lot of the talking and very little and very simple goalkeeping coming from them, predominantly the taller ones that will be able to make those saves. Okay. Then we've got the shot stoppers who make that amazing save, as we'll see in some of the clips that will come up just now, where they'll make the amazing stick save or save that ball that is just out of this world and you would have never expected to save it. And then the last but not least, the dead eye specialist, as we can see over here with the 8-second shootout, good feet work, dictating which side to go, makes a save to the sideline, making sure that it's out of confrontation more than anything. And then obviously the PC defense aspect, which goes in a little deeper as to where to set, where to make save, how to save deflections more than anything, and that last-ditch save where it's going to far post.
I think we saw quite a few of the dead-eye specialists in the Samaris Fest. I mean, we made mention of Aikens, of Manachunu, they really were very good at those movements on the field.
Yeah, they were brilliant. And the biggest thing about that, they just kept their sides in the game and didn't allow their sides to deflate and keep the momentum with their teams.
And you spoke about how in your festival now, how good the keepers were on offsetting.
Yes.
Just phenomenal, like reading the pitch.
Yeah. I think it speaks to the fact, and Sia can probably talk to this as well, is how involved the keepers have become in the PC defense. They're basically running that side of things, being involved in what sort of lines you're going to run, what formations you're going to run. And I think that speaks to that mental aspect that you spoke about. They need to have knowledge of the game. They need to have done their work on the flickers they're up against. I think that's important. And Sia probably does a lot of that work at national level.
Yeah, indeed. And of course, even at club level, I have to normally take my guys into the goal box and we actually run lines on how to run out our PC defense, whether we set up in a 3-1 or running a truck and trailer, putting a postman on the left and the right-hand side, sometimes taking that out completely, even playing with a man down. I think a lot of teams forget about playing with only 3 on defense and now the keeper also playing as a 4th. So you need to be able to sort of preempt those things before they even get to those moments.
Absolutely, and it's been fantastic having you talk to us today, Sia, just about goalkeeping, and we look forward to many more interactive sessions looking at all sorts of striker lines, running lines, defensive lines. But when we come back after this, we're going to look at what's coming up for this week on SuperSport Schools with all the hockey fixtures around the country. And welcome back to Hockey on 216, brought to you by Hyundai. We have spoken to goalkeepers about how they've evolved over time. Sian Olutungo was brilliant. He just gave us such a nice analytical aspect. I think it's something that we're going to look to bring more and more into this particular show, just because there's such depth. I mean, Rob, you made mention of it, the need to learn how to play the game at a young age, the growth opportunities that it gives you, and so forth. And Moodles, you spoke about the same thing now, just how important analysing certain aspects of the game are. Absolutely,
and the important thing now is that we have access to all this video, access to the games to go back on. And Rob, your point was very well made. A segment on the basics of giving players information about how to train the basics, what to do one-on-one, because training as a team and as a unit is often limited by other activities at schools. But there's nothing stopping players from going down on their own and training some of the technical side of the game that we don't often get to in practices.
Sure, and I think also, as coaches, you realize that you've got one goalkeeper, 15 players, you're spending more time on the 15 players. But drills can incorporate your keeper at the same time, but your keeper's also got to be in discipline to make sure they're warmed up correctly, get what they deserve. And I think you do. As I said, the standard for me is amazing. I think we've got so much experience in goalkeeping coaches today. That has been a big plus for the country. And if we can help every kid out, it's just going to benefit in the long term.
Yeah, definitely. It's something we're going to try implement more and more into the show, particularly with a heavy focus on the hockey. We've got a lot of hockey this weekend again. It's Friday Night Lights from JP Boys. Manny, I know you're going to be down at JP Boys. They've got a really cool initiative going out there. Can you just tell us exactly what it entails?
Yeah, 100%. So it's an initiative that JPF and Parktown have come together to launch. It's their initiative to stand together against GBV. We know it's so prevalent in our country, and it's fantastic to see the two schools, the two brother and sister schools, coming together just to unite for a decent cause, and it's going to make for some really good hockey as well.
Yeah, so from 3 o'clock, we've got non-stop action there. I think JP girls versus Parktown girls, who played at your festival now. Parktown having a nice hockey season. They had a tough start, Rob, but I think they slowly evolving and they'll find their feet. JP girls, always been a good school at hockey, but always kind of just on the cusp of a real talent. So an exciting game, no doubt.
No doubt. And I think where JP girls lack is they don't have a full Astro. So they have a very small one. So I think they lack the ability to train properly on a big Astro. But again, also a fighting team. They'll always be there. Parktown, as you say, have had a good season. And I think they were a little bit disappointed. They were hoping to do better at the Courage Festival. But that's what tournaments are about, and they'll come back fighting, and I think Friday is going to be exciting to see the two teams playing.
Yeah, and I think playing under lights for both of them on TV. They're going to be on channel 216. Then we got the JP girls game, and then the JP boys versus Parktown boys. Moodles, you've seen both teams.
Yes.
They've had a good start to the season. JP obviously top of the pops, always got a target on their back. Parktown fighters, we've spoken about it, how much they fight on the park.
Yeah, I think that people will be thinking JP, favourites in that game to win. But there's something special about these derby fixtures. There's a lot of hype around things. And I think that's when Parktown are at their best. They play on the counter-attack. JP are going to have to ensure that they don't leave the back door open when they're playing Parktown. But I think, these derby games are always exciting. And Parktown certainly have enough in them to push JP all the way. So that's going to be exciting. And I think a good clash between the two schools. A long history of hockey and rugby and sport in general between those two schools.
Yeah, it's an exciting Friday Night Lights brought to you by Honda. You've also got Paul Roos versus Grey High School, touring sides. Grey High going down to Paul Roos. That's going to be an absolute smashing game. Paul Roos still top of the pops. There's something in the water, we say down there, with Renich and Paul Roos and Blumhoff now.
Yeah,
Blumhoff are playing Herschel this weekend. So, lots of action again this weekend. What's your take on the Paul Roos Grey game?
We haven't seen Grey play yet, but we know that they had a really good under 16 setup last year. So I'm expecting that their first team's going to be good. They
had good Tony.
Yes. Yes.
Tony?
So personally, maybe I should clarify and say I haven't seen them play personally, but I know that looking at their results, they're going to be very competitive. But as I said, watching Paul Roos closely at Coastal Cup, they're going to be the team to beat. Really, really talented group of players, play with such maturity, and they're certainly going to bring the energy to that game. The intensity is going to be at a high level, and Grey will need to rise to the occasion, particularly Paul Roos at home.
Absolutely, Paul Roos at home, they've got that to their advantage, and they've already got the brilliant streak that they're on. I mean, they smashed some big goals in their lower teams. We're also finding that there are a whole lot of other festivals happening across the country. I know there's an under-16 festival that's happening in the girls' space. We've spoken about a lot of the youngsters coming through the ranks, exciting hockey in that space with the girls' games taking place around the country. I just mentioned Bloemhof Renish, Bloemhof Herschel. That's going to be a good game to watch, no doubt, as well.
Yeah, 100%. I think Bloemhof coming off quite a tough weekend. They'll be really disappointed not to have their first St. Mary's Festival. So I think they'll come into that game really good. Herschel, they were there and thereabouts. They don't have their best side, but they've got a really good under-16 side. So going through a rebuild, but as we say, come Derby Day, anything can happen, I think.
Absolutely. And Rob, from your guys' side, I know it's school holidays, which is always nice for the teachers to get a little bit of a break. Not for you too much, unfortunately. But break here in Johannesburg, but there is still quite a bit of hockey happening. We've got the under-21 IPTs coming up. I'm assuming you're going to be there from a selector perspective, potentially just watching.
No, I'm not.
Okay, not. All right. There we go, still on holiday it seems.
Yes.
But then you come back and it's a non-stop action.
Basically, the league will really start for us. We do have an independent schools sports festival in Durban. Our season continues right through into July, so it goes quite long. 3 exams, but our season's only really starting now after the St. Mary's Festival.
Okay.
Bridge, I'd like to pick Rob's brain on 2 of the girls' games, some good derbies this weekend as well. Clarendon Pearson, you watched them both play?
Yeah, I think it's very tight. I think both sides had a reasonably good St. Mary's and played well. I think on the day, it's just a matter of who's going to be able to score the goals, as we've spoken. Again, very well polished teams.
Yes.
So I expect a very close one there.
Pearson's program doing exceptionally well, boys and girls. I mean, I think they've put down 2 Astros, so really staking a claim on hockey in the Eastern Cape.
I think Tony Marks, who's an ex-national player, has gone back to roots and is assistant coaching and working with the striker line there. They were very good at St. Mary's, so it's one to watch, definitely.
Their boys are very competitive at Coastal Cup, so that's really good program down there. And then the second one, Rob, Unisi Gasfontein.
Sure, anyone's pick. I think both sides are very good.
Yes.
Both on the day have talent, and I think Gassis are a hard side to beat.
Yes.
They don't let you break them down at all.
Yes.
Whereas Unisi have been hot and cold a bit at St. Mary's. So I think on the day, once again, it's going to be a game that will go either way. Both sides are very good.
I noticed when I watched them play, a lot of speed in both teams.
Yes, definitely.
Going to be end-to-end battle there, I think.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a home game for Unisi.
Yes.
Always to their advantage. But having said that, Gasfontein, I always find them such an interesting team to watch because they are quick and they just work together. I mean, we saw it at St. Mary's. They're a team that loves to play hockey. They actually genuinely love playing hockey, no matter.
Give up, eh?
Yeah, they never give up. It's great to watch. Yeah.
Good. Then on the boys' side, another 2 derbies.
Yeah.
Affy's Paul Gym. That will be a big derby fixture, rugby and hockey. Affy's have been really good at founders. We said they play with a lot of structure. It'll be interesting to see how they go against Paul Gym. I'm not sure, is that in Pretoria or?
No, it's in Paul.
In Paul.
So it's a big general derby across all sports codes. So that one is going to be big, I think, on the girls' side and the boys' side.
Yes.
Paul girls having a great, Paul Gym girls having a great run, and they're playing Affy's, and then the boys' side as well. I think that one's going to be an interesting game.
Yes.
Both 2 physical sides in the boys' game. I think you got Paul Gym, a physical team.
Yes.
And Affy's very physical. You've made mention of it before.
Yeah. Affy's moved the ball really well. So, again, we speak about the Cape teams doing well. It's going to be a tough trip for Affy's down there, but I'm sure they'll fare well against Paul Jim. And then the other one, which is two teams that were involved in a number of close encounters at Nomads, King Edwards and Pretoria Boys High, facing off this weekend. I think they play home and away, so this is the first of their two fixtures. And again, I think that's anyone's game.
I think both teams looking forward to Easter festivals.
Yes.
So that's going to be a nice building space for them. Care's hosting, and I think that Pretoria boys side is one to watch again. You've made mention of it, Moodles.
Yes.
They're a side that loves to move the ball, coached well, really exciting hockey. Care's also
and it's just come to my mind that Colin Fielding will be playing against his old school now. So he would have coached a lot of the players that are in the Care's first team, and so he'll go up against Sharman, and that should be an interesting...
A battle of the egos, yeah. The hockey egos. And also down in Natal, you're finding also some really cracking games. Westville Northwood.
Yes.
Westville Northwood have had a really good season so far, both coming off wins and losses. And that one, I think, is going to be, a really, really tough game for both sides. Northwood, I think, with more wins currently. Yes. Westville having a bad start to the season, but they also a side you never underestimate. They're just going to grow from strength to strength.
Yeah, it's such a tricky province that, there's never anywhere to hide in KZN. There's
Absolutely.
no real easy fixtures, and I think that's going to be an absolute humdinger.
Yeah. And then you've got College Glenwood.
Yes.
Another great game.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I think good news today from College that they've appointed another hockey man as their headmaster. So we're going to see that College program go from strength to strength. And as Manny said, there's no hiding in that KZN. Yeah. It's a bit like the Cape, There's no fixtures where you've got to win on the weekend. Every game's close, and we've seen that as a trend now with the festivals just been through. Rob alluded to that you couldn't call a winner on day 3 at St Mary's, and I think that speaks to the resources we have in South African hockey at the moment, and how players are being well coached and all being given an opportunity to play a very good tactical and technical game.
Definitely. I actually mentioned it over the weekend walking around St Mary's. I think there must have been close to 2,000 caps worth of national experience amongst all the coaches. And the fact that all of them are giving back, the game is just elevated, and it's probably the same across all the festivals. It's just so exciting. You've got to walk around with your autograph book, I think, if you're that kind of player. But guys, thank you so much for joining us in studio. It's been really great just chatting hockey. You can see how easy it is because we love it so much. And we look forward to a lot of action this weekend. Next week on Hockey on 216, we'll be coming live from St. Stithians from their sports festival. They start off with some hockey, and that will be our Friday night lights on Wednesday night. So really exciting hockey to take place there. Thank you for joining us this week. Moodles, until next week. Rob,
thank you, Bridge.
Good luck with the holiday. Get some rest.
Thank you.
I'm sure. Manny will be in commentary. You'll be hearing his voice, and along with the whistle here and there. So thank you very much to Sia for joining us for his inserts from the goalkeeping side. Until next week, have a good one. See you soon.